everybody. Keith here. Hoping everybody's having a good day, enjoying life, living life, loving life. I want to remind everybody, hit that like, share, and subscribe button down there. There's a PayPal link for anybody that wants to share some love. And of course, the StreamYard link is there for anybody that wants to join the panel. And we're back on it tonight with the Eception Part 3, the entire civil service. And so we're going to get right into it. Got the last video to look at. And let's get her.
What you just read about the attorney thing for us, I think that's probably why they allow themselves to put out so much information so you can just argue over. That's what attorneys do.
Well, yeah, and I think a lot of them know the simple fact that that's what everything is just attorney, and they have specific knowledge in how to use the case law to do people. Well, now we know better, and it's like I said earlier in the first session. I quit signing for a reason, folks. I don't need to. If I'm the beneficiary, then why am I required to sign? 19 CFR 149.3 verifies this. You're allowed to give a number in lieu of the name and address. So why are people consistently giving a name and address? Well, because they were taught in school. Here's how you write your name and address. But you gotta.
And this is what I'm talking about, is the education. If we were educated otherwise, we might be a stronger nation with a stronger populace being able to self-govern themselves with a more legitimate government and a more legitimate population of people that have the intellect to know that they are in fact the ones that give the power to the government. They don't get it anywhere but by the consent of the people.
Hide that number. How come everybody in the government uses that number? I'm told to hide it. I'm supposed to use a name and address, but they, as importers and exporters, get to use the number in lieu of the name and address. I'll never put your name and address down on that paper. Just this number.
I promise you. In my class, there's another section of in indoctrination camp, right? So the other teachers are teaching these students, and they're not even really teaching them, right? They're doing the same thing you do when you go out in the public. They just give you the paperwork and say fill it out. So they're not even teaching this kid how to.
Does that sound familiar, Malika? Does that sound like a student loan? Here, just fill it out.
Yes, everything. That's everything, and we think that because they ask, it means it's required.
Yep.
But the numbers are not ours either. So whether you use your name, a number, none of this shit is yours. And what application are you filling out anyway? You going to apply for something that's already yours, huh?
And every time a public trustee asks a beneficiary to give them information, it is an abusive trust tax evasion scheme, form 14242. So, and it's important to
abusive trust taxation scheme. Now I'm going to see the IRS tomorrow here at the local office to hopefully initiate that forensic securities audit on the entire Social Security case. All the accounts that have ever been developed throughout my entire life from the state's vital statistics jurisdiction. And I've got those charts printed up to show them that I know what I'm talking about as far as to all the agencies that we're going to have to be in communication with, all the way from Department of Homeland Security as a matter of redress for misidentification, all the way throughout the system, Department of State, Bureau of Consular Affairs, U.S. Attorney General, the President, the Governor of the state, the state's Attorney General, Secretary of State, all of them. It's going to be a shotgun blast from the IRS under my directive as the beneficiary, known as the grantor of a grantor trust.
comprehend this stuff. Again, like I said, we're not required to give any information, let alone a number.
You said if they ask for the information, data elements, it's what? What does that mean?
If they're asking for any kind of data elements from the beneficiary, it's an abusive trust tax evasion because the beneficiary is not required to do anything.
Abusive trust and tax evasion.
Yeah, form 14242.
Oh, that's an actual thing.
Yeah, form 14242, and read the language on there. It tells you it's an abusive trust tax evasion is what the form is for. And
that's what I'll be presenting, along with various other things that I've come across in my research and everything. I just went through all the information, including the fidelity bonds from the judicial directly from the Secretary of State for the judicial officers throughout the state at county and municipal levels everywhere, so that along with the birth certificate, I can create an indemnification statement along with certificate of trust to name the private trust and the trustees and beneficiaries and all that. I'm prepared, I think, the best I can be. So we'll see how it goes. And like I said, I'll keep everybody up to date on how that goes.
We're operating in a public trust, and they're asking us as beneficiaries to give them any information. It tells you on that form, we're not required to give them any information, period. And if they're asking for it, that's an abusive trust tax evasion. Why would you ask the beneficiary for tax information when you have it yourself as the trustee who is responsible for the taxes of that trust?
Well, I'm just trying to find out if you're also one of the agents that's liable to pay. Because sometimes some people are. Lots of people are simply because they wish to be. Okay,
Yep.
They act like they want.
And that's when they ask you for the ID. See, that's implying that you're just another trustee in public service, which is a public trust. So they're actually, according to the paperwork and the presentation of ID, they are in fact, the paperwork shows operating under the administration, which is another trustee under that same administration. As if though you're just another trustee. It's not the way it's supposed to be. That's the inducement, the identification.
On the lotto because they have numbers and letters and all types of stuff to give these people.
And see, it says here, it says statements by masters of vessels and owners of cargoes before granting clearances. This is one of my favorites, because I'm going to throw this right up in there. You know, the statements by masters of vessels and owners of their cargoes before granting clearance. Great, because I fear not, for I have been redeemed. He has called me by name. I am his vessel. I am his cargo. I am his. And he.
And see, that's again that enumeration of birth. There was no statement by mom or dad. There is no statement of intent anywhere by anybody.
My going out and my coming in from this time forth and even forevermore, because he knew me before I was formed in the belly, before I was cast from that womb and that birth certificate was created. He sanctified me. He ordained me a prophet unto the nations. So your conference of nationality through that birth registration as a United States national or as a U.S. national, given a United States citizenship, is false. False.
Yes, it's a United States citizenship, which we've explained as a United States business, and you can't do that. You can't just grant somebody a business, like I explained before. You can't grant somebody an 18-wheeler that's only 10 years old and expect them to be able to use it. So you have to be able to hold it in trust and have a way to teach them how to use it. That's part of the grant, is the education of use. That's what they fail in this public trust. General Education Provisions Act does not provide the proper education to use those vessels that they teach us to sign for.
Certification by my own statements in correlation with the biblical scripture, and nobody would be able to rebut it. By God, I think you're right.
Well, I'm just doing my job.
I think you're right.
I'm just doing my job, sir. Even though I've never read the job description, and I'm not actually doing my job. I'm just going to tell you.
And that birth registration is the manifest of an original document to be incorporated later on. That's a false manifest. Yet it was cleared. Again, they assigned a newborn number, a number, Social Security number to a newborn child, manifesting a false record that is identified by the name and the number.
Somebody showed up and pledged this child. I didn't go confiscate them from anywhere.
By the way, I'm not accusing you of that. I'm saying it's a false manifest. In honor for the face.
Like, it can't be false. Somebody came and declared these data elements.
Well, yeah, but the data elements have been entered wrong. They were entered in error. They weren't.
Oh no, I had
no, the person that entered them didn't take an oth. The person that entered them.
Hey, you don't have to take an oath to give us a foundling child.
Oh, but you got to take an oath to be an exporter.
Well,
so anyway,
I don't qualify to be standing at this cash register with
exactly,
these.
Exactly. That's why we just go past that checkout, right, Felicia? Yeah, see, we just go past that checkout.
Yeah, right now.
Okay, so the next one: offenses, punishment, forfeitures of property. Now, you guys, again, we're talking about forfeitures that are operated through that marine insurance, inland marine insurance, and this is where the inland forfeitures go through the judicial courts of the Postal Service.
See, it's the Postal Service that is actually the regulatory power of seizures. Same with searches, as that's the clearance. See, if it's already cleared, then it's no longer subject to search. See, it was already cleared for customs when it was imported or produced. You know, if it was imported from a foreign nation or produced here to locally in the American United States, the 50 states, whatever, then it's already been cleared for customs.
That's why they hold the forfeiture laws through the postal system. And here we see the forfeiture laws in the military.
I gotta double check, make sure the postal board got my forfeiture letter from the attorney.
Yep.
And I reported him.
Because this is, as I said earlier, it's the Coast Guard and the Marines. And the Marines have jurisdiction inland through the post offices, which are submarine substations. And then each of those municipalities have their own armies. This is
We have
50 U.S.
policy
code.
officers.
Yep. Anyone carrying arms incorporated in and indentured into the Constitution and allowed to assert the Second Amendment.
That's the standing armies.
The next one, rules by district courts and appeals. Remember the rules by the district courts. Got to be District of Columbia.
And again, those are rules. See, nowhere do we actually find that there's any laws, again, except for the law of nations, like I mentioned yesterday, which is otherwise known as the principles of the laws of nature.
Got to be District of Columbia. Otherwise, it's just territorial. And they have to have their own residency of the dual citizenship, which is insanity itself. So to sit there and claim that you have rights to enforce possessional use and control of any physical thing, including this man, who happens to be a wild animal, I think goes against your wildlife and fish rules. You don't have a license to capture this guy.
The District Court of the United States are given jurisdiction to make and enter all such rules as to notice and otherwise, and all such orders and decrees, and to issue. Okay, Kevin's chat popped up in front of it. Okay, issues such process as may be necessary and proper in the premises to enforce the provisions of this chapter with a right of appeal from the final order or decree or of such court as provided in section 128 and 138 of the Act of March 3rd, 1911, entitled an act to codify, revise, and amend the laws relating to the judiciary. Under Title 50, though?
Yeah,
So
well,
weird.
See, 50 is national, is war and national defense. And they're the ones that have the power that regulates the judiciary. I'm telling you, it's a military currency, military fiat.
I guess they're talking about court-martial. Because why else would you be under Title 50? You gotta be talking about the court-martials.
Title 50 is wildlife and fisheries. Oh, wait a minute. Yeah. That's why I'm a wild animal, baby.
No. This is the beneficiaries. This is the Title 7 fisheries. Why? This is so weird.
This is Title 50, wildlife and fisheries, U.S. code, but the CFR title doesn't match.
See, and this is what I'm saying about 7 U.S.C. 136. If they're going to find animal includes but is not limited to man, then man is included in the wildlife and fisheries protections. Wildlife and fisheries, all wild animals. Animal includes but is not limited to man. This is in regards to the Environmental Protection Act and those easements that protect the wildlife and fisheries through the military form, which is a judiciary fiat currency of regulations through the Postal Service.
Okay,
Look at this.
so someone says, what do you mean by people get happy because they have all kinds of numbers? Oh, people are really proud to have government numbers and to act as government agents. That's why every time they're handed forms, they very happily fill out each and every block. And if they don't fill out each and every block, they feel shitty because they should have a thing to put in each and every block. They literally think that simply because they're being requested that it is their duty to perform and provide that information. So they want to put their name. They want to put their address. They also want to put a social security number, whether it's theirs or not. They want to put everything. They want to give everything.
See, and that's the problem with this numbering system right now. Like I said, the local courts converted the number that we were given to use, and instead they convert that number for internal use And we've never been taught about that. When we find out the terms that they're using that number for, which is obligor, that's the same thing as the payor. Whereas I myself, like I've explained before, everybody else as third-party benefactors are the obligee of who the principal is obligated to. That's the government as a public trust, as trustees are obligated to the people, the ones that are the payees. And if you understand those terms, the payee is the one that receives payment. And they've converted me as from the payee to the payor by converting the number. I was only given information to use the Social Security number as a beneficiary number to receive payments of benefits. They converted the use of receiving a benefit to being the payor.
And that Act of 1911, that's the Reorganization Act's amended.
Oh my God, I figured it was some next stupid stuff like that.
42, Public Health, Judicial Review. So now we see the Judicial Review being a martial law review now, because Article 10 of martial law says martial law chiefly affects the police and collection of revenue.
Right, because it's the executive branch period that they're martial lawing. I was actually talking with somebody about that today. He was like, oh, when martial law happens, it's like, what the hell? What do you mean when? That shit started in the 1700s. What are you talking about? And it's always in effect because they're always going to be marshals who need laws to follow.
And what is an MA organization? It's a medical association.
Oh my God.
And what's a CMS?
Hold on a second.
That's the Certified Medical Services. Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services.
Healthcare financing. Well, they're still doing healthcare financing. They're trying to use those COVID vaccination cards, visas, to fund their stupid crap right now. That's why they're pushing it.
All done off of the estates through the enumeration of the translated legal name, first and last name, from the given and surname, or given and family name.
You get 2 free donuts now at Krispy Kreme.
Oh, 2 free donuts now, my daughter says at Krispy Kreme. 2, not 1 load of sugar, 2. Enrollee or provider on behalf of it. What? No, who gave you the provider power of attorney?
Exactly.
See, and that's what we're talking about. There is no actual power of attorney, again, because mom and dad didn't make any statements to begin with, let alone make any statement of transferring power of attorney. It was never done. It's a presumption. They had no right to do so.
See, that's what happens.
But I guess if you're already enrolled in the military, you already gave a power of attorney for their agents to do stuff to you and on your behalf.
Well, see, what happened is they established the foundation of a corporation, and as we became an adult, we did.
And again, if you did that and didn't know what was going on, that's unconscionable. You weren't conscious of the fact that somebody else assigned a power of attorney for you, then that's unconscionable contracting.
Make the decision of whether to incorporate by taking an oath to perform the functions of public office and operate within that commercial system, nor did we deny it and say, no, I'm not qualified because I'm just the beneficiary. We didn't do either thing. So the presumption rides that it's a corporation, but it's in fact operating without a corporate status, and therefore it's the enemy of the state. But we're not the ones doing it. The beneficiary isn't required to do anything, therefore can't be culpable if he does, and then later finds out that that was a mistake. The trustee is the one that's culpable because they're the ones that are supposed to know this.
True.
And what they do on those in these transactions, on one side of the counter, you're an individual with that Social Security number. On the other side of the counter, it's a conversion of an individual to a corporate entity as an obligor, changing the number and the name. And I've showed this several times on prescriptions and through the court documents that I got received that says a financial index from the court. And it shows strictly or succinctly that they substituted the last name that I gave them for a firm name. And that's an unknown conversion to me until I got that document and did my research. Now I fully understand it, and it's got to be taken care of. It's got to be fixed. Everything was unconscionable.
I like how C says
in Article 1 corporate contract courts. They are not operating in Article 3 common law. They are operating Article 1 corporate courts under Article 4 of the Constitution, judicial courts. military tribunals, martial courts, martial law courts, the gold fringe flag.
He says a party must file a civil action. People think that the civil action is the initiation of the original court, but it's just for review.
Right. We're just making
It's
the
for
judicial
review.
review. And this is what they don't understand is when we file a civil action, we're not filing a civil suit.
That's what people think they're doing. People
Right.
think that
We're
when
not
they
doing
file
that. We're asking for the civil action of the civil contractors required to their debt previously contracted to fulfill that contract. Quit putting it on us as if we're expected to have duties and obligations in that contract when we don't.
Well, so who's supposed to be bringing the civil action in the civil court? The
We are.
MA or the CMS?
We are. Because
Well,
these guys won't recognize their fault in it. They're going to continue to say we're just doing our job.
This is where we have to understand the difference between the contract and the trust. Okay, nowhere is there a contract without a trust. And in that trust, depending on how it's structured, there are different parties, trustees and beneficiaries. And again, like I said, if everybody's considered a trustee, then how the fuck is it a trust if there's no beneficiaries? Where the fuck are the beneficiaries? So it's merely a matter of expressing the trust in your capacity or position in that trust as the third-party benefactor, not subject to the contracts, but qualified to benefit from them. And if you're not receiving the benefits that you qualified for, and in fact they're using it to your detriment, you have a valid claim. They don't. This is what the civil claim is about. It's not about filing a suit against them. It's about correcting the record so that it won't be used against you anymore. The Miranda rights, anything you say can and will be used against you. However, that's grandfathered in. Everything you've ever said can and will be used against you. They find an error, they can use it against you. Remove those errors. Correct the record before they can use them against you, as if though they're true. Let them know they're errors.
Yeah, we know not to let them say that. Show me where in your job description it says you're supposed to do what you're doing right now.
Yeah.
Then they like to go, I'm not arguing with you. Ain't nobody arguing. You said you following your job. Let's go look at it.
Okay. Title 28, Section 509 says functions of the Attorney General. All functions of other officers of the Department of Justice and all functions of agencies and employees of the Department of Justice are vested in the Attorney General. Except the functions vested by Subchapter 2 of Chapter 5 of Title 5 and Administrative Law Judges, Federal Prison Industry, the Board of Directors of the Officers of Federal Prison.
Federal Prison Industry, Inc.
The Board of Directors and Officers of Federal Prison, Inc. What was I thinking was so interesting about this?
The functions of the Attorney General.
Yeah, the functions. The functions themselves at the seat of the office, which is the position. So, like I said earlier, everybody's operating in the functions at the position as if though they're a person transferring property. Even when you go to court and you're filing these documents, you think you're going to have some kind of effect to have them give you something back. You're still.
See, this is the thing about acting in a similar manner. See, they have attorneys under the Attorney General. All the attorneys are subject to the Attorney General. And they all function in the matter of transferring property as an attorney at law. The beneficiary is, in fact, the attorney in fact, and can do the same transfer of property. He gets to do it without taxation. The attorney gets taxed for it because he's investing in it in himself. This is where the corruption comes in. If they're allowed to invest in it with their own interests and negate the beneficiary because he doesn't really know what's going on, they will do it to the max. It's a game of confidence. The more confident they get that the beneficiary doesn't know what's going on and can treat him as a trustee, the more they're going to do it.
Operating in the functions and the position of attorney. Why? Mine. Give me now. Executive Department, the Attorney General, the Department of Justice, and the Executive Department of the United States at the seat of government.
At the seat of government. See, the people are in the seat of government if you can keep it. It's like musical chairs, though. You have to keep up with the laws and be educated in order to be able to direct the government in the manner that you need them to act according to your capacity. And again, the true benefit is knowledge. The more knowledge you have, the better you're able to direct them. The more you do it, the better you get at it. Sense of Fear says, would that be same as a school? Who is the Benny? Children or parents that fund the school in taxes? Neither. They're both being taken advantage of. Mom and dad are being taken advantage of by a system that is providing a dogmatic education system as a military program. Those are military schools known as foundling schools. And moms and dads, the parents, as you used, parents. The definition of parents is adoptive parents. Many people don't understand that. Foundling hospital, foundling schools, and the parents are considered people that have adopted those foundlings through the paperwork. This is the birth registration, supposedly raising them up to be able to operate a business when they grow up, and nobody knows the difference. Nobody knows that that's the intent or the operation of that commercial system. Public education is not a benefit. It is a detriment,
They're not even in the C.O.W.A.R.D.S.
in my opinion.
No, they're just at it, not in it.
I swear, this is retarded.
It's place, right?
Just a break from the craziness.
Yeah, right.
Whatever
Interests
you
of United States in pending suits. Now, all of these cases, 93 of them, the interest of the United States will be in a pending suit if they do not want to negotiate my terms of reconciliation and repentance and forgiveness under 50 U.S.C. 4305 for full acquittance and discharge. If they do not
I'll be forced to file a suit somehow, some way.
want to do that, then there will a suit be pending in their case, in their courts, through the international
Please don't do that no more.
criminal courts.
Read my messages to some nigga.
Hey.
Just please. I'm not, you don't, no matter why.
Hey, Marvin. Thank you. The interest of the United States in pending suits, and to comprehend people, the interest of the United States lies in every data element, ever entered into their records, whether it be definitive paper form or transferred to electronic form. They have an interest in it because that is their record that resides in the Library of Congress. If the state...
This is the state's vital statistics jurisdiction being established through the birth certificate and all the data elements they collect throughout your life until there's a death certificate issued. And all of those data elements hold what's known as a historical value according to the statistics. And that's going to be entered into the National Archives. So there is a legitimate reason for those statistical elements, but they need to be correct. They need to be known as people and not individuals that can be converted to an inverted domestic corporation on the other side of the counter.
States have records that are using identification, such as name and number, that pertain to that identify that record, and it puts out a bad name. It needs to be rectified. That's in the interest of the United States. So while there are 93 cases in on and for the record in the state of Iowa, the name on that record is in all uppercase letters in the interest of the United States. That's making it look bad on the United States, not me.
So are you going to file a claim?
Oh, no, I'm going to Department of Homeland Security to have it all regressed.
Oh,
That's
because they...
And see, I'm doing that, but I'm doing it through the IRS for the IRS issue because it is a misidentification of payor and payee. Taxpayer identification number. That's the Social Security number. It's issued as a taxpayer identification number, not as a payor. And that's the imperative pertinence to looking up these terms and conditions and what the differences are in the words. When you see P-A-Y-O-R as opposed to P-A-Y-E-R that we were all taught in school, and you start looking up those legal definitions, you find out the payor is the one that's supposed to pay. The payee is the one that's supposed to receive payment. The obligor is the one, is the identification of that who is supposed to pay as payor. Social Security number is the number of that who is supposed to receive the benefit as payee.
If you talking
You guys
about
are the ones that made the
in
claim.
the district, in the court.
Yeah, so
District.
you guys are the ones that are making the claim. The state made a claim, and there's their claim, 93 cases. And they're trying to say that I owe them these many supposed doll hairs and stuff. I don't know anything about it because when I call the Department of the Treasury offset program,
No, it's a trust. Public service is a public trust. Public service is a trust. Payor, P-A-Y-O-R. That's the legal term in the finance industry. P-A-Y-O-R and P-A-Y-E-E. One gives to the other. Just like benefactor is the one that gives to the beneficiary.
and give them that information, they tell me, no, there's no debt. So I'm not the one making the false claim. The state is. Get it? In the interest of the United States, who says there is no debt, the state has made a claim that there is.
Well, it's actually, George over there. George,
Yeah,
whatever his
see?
name is. The state is silent, obviously, because they don't have any information to support what that agent is saying.
And that's what we're talking about here is the clerk of court, like I've said, is the one that issues everything. So when Judge Andrea Dreyer, Judicial District Judge Andrea Dreyer, put out a failure to appear for jury duty and issued a bond, despite the fact that there is no charges, no finances, no long title, no fucking bond found, yet she still felt the necessity to order a bond for $350 and then handed that paperwork to the clerk, who then issued it. The clerk is the one that's doing all the bonding action and issuing those bonds to the sheriff to go out and get me. Okay?
Yep. National Security Division. There is a National Security Division of the Department of Justice. And that's what that birth registration did. It made it straight to the Department of Justice as a matter of national security, so that every signature done in that name from now on, connected to that number, created a United States security instrument.
Everything at the state level, known as commercial paper, it's got contract terms and conditions on it, whether it be application, registration, certification, otherwise, is known as a negotiable instrument. And once it's negotiated and you sign it, it can then be securitized. If you don't sign it properly and then hand it over to them, they will securitize it because to them it's money and it's on you.
And it was. How did I end up with two of them? That's right. Yep.
And that you is that 20 CFR 422.104, the definition of you is an individual who owes a debt to the United States. So they take you as a debtor because they assume that because you've given them a social security number somewhere that you're admitting you're in debt to the United States. So they take you as the debtor, which of course that number, again, like I said, was given to you supposedly to receive benefits. But instead, when you give it to these organizations, they turn around and use it as if though you're the debtor and they become the creditor in all situations.
Because I reviewed it. So, supervision of litigation. Remember you asked if I was going to make a claim?
Mm-hmm.
They've got suits pending. Those are only summary judgments. Right? So they're still pending. Fines haven't been paid, so they're still pending. So supervision of litigation of those cases that are still pending, except as other.
And I want you to know all those cases were summary judgments. No one ever received, there was never given a declaratory judgment. There was never given a final judgment. So now I get to come forward in equity to avoid a multiplicity of suits and make my declaratory judgment, have them do the investigation of my declaratory judgment, and then come out with a final judgment.
otherwise authorized by law, the Attorney General shall supervise all litigation to which the United States, an agency or officer thereof, is a party, and shall direct all United States attorneys, assistant United States attorneys, and special attorneys appointed under Section 543 of this title in discharge of their respective duties.
And so the United States citizen has a United States business. That is such a thing, officer thereof, agency thereof, a party thereof, because it was created by the United States. Again, an internationally protected person by reason and logic under American interest, because it was created by the United States. They damn well better be ready to protect it.
Congress shall lay and collect all duties and taxes, all taxes and duties. Now, if they're going to discharge their respective duties, they have to do so with Congress, correct?
Mm-hmm.
I think that deserves recognition by Congress, which was the first step they were supposed to do, was give administrative notice for a judicial review.
What agency did you say you were filing with, Keith?
Department of Homeland Security.
Oh, why do I keep
Redress.
forgetting that?
Yeah, redress.
Why do I keep forgetting the department? I'm about to hang with them on Wednesday.
And Malika here, the gal speaking, that's Malika Dulce. She's my friend that had some travel issues while going on planes using the World Passport. They gave her issue a few times and let her keep it, but then they finally took the World Passport. And so she had to address Department of Justice or Department of Defense as a matter of that redress, Travelers Redress Program. And they ended up sending her a letter saying that they could neither admit nor deny any of the facts, and then assigned a redress number that if she had any problems with any government agency again in the future, she could give that number and that should resolve the issues. It's pretty much like a do not intercept. And now she uses that number when she travels and there's no problems. From Homeland Security, a redress for misidentification. That's the First Amendment, the very last, the fifth element, the right to petition the government for redress of grievance.
Okay, so when we looked at that one earlier, the United States Code about said it was repealed here and there and there and there, here and there, and we checked out that one code. It came up to 10 U.S. 8 or 10 U.S. Code 801.
Go back to that one about nobody being liable in court real quick.
Oh, 4305, 50 U.S.C. 4305.
Okay.
And no person shall be held liable in any court for or in respect to anything done or omitted in good faith, in connection with the administration of, or in pursuance of, and in reliance on this subdivision or any rule, regulation, instruction, or direction issue hereunder.
You gotta prove that good faith. Okay, that's USC.
And when we looked up that one code that was talking about repealed and this and that, and it told us that it was referring to 10 U.S. Code 101 definitions. And then when we look up 10 U.S. Code 801, it says Article 1 definitions. Article 1, because the judiciary reorganization under 1911 was a institution of the military code. It was the actual, just like the Uniform Commercial Code was actually being practiced, it wasn't actually instituted until 1952. The martial law was being practiced, but it wasn't instituted until 1911 in the reorganization of 1911. And here's it.
You guys understand that? The Uniform Commercial Code was in practice for a long time, and they were refining it. And then once they refined it well enough that they could institute it as regulation, they did so through the states, with each state adopting their own form of the UCC. In other words, the statutes that the states constructed are the contract terms and conditions for the administrative office through judicial determination under the state's legislation from the executive office at the federal level. The entire executive civil service.
Says in this chapter, the Uniform Code of Military Justice, the term Judge Advocate General means severally the Judge Advocates General of the Army, Navy, and Air Force, and except when the Coast Guard is operating as a service in the Navy, an official designated to serve as Judge Advocate General of the Coast Guard by the Secretary of Homeland Security. And
that's why I mentioned the JAG in here as the ultimate authority go to if these guys don't want to play ball right. Because it's telling us right here, this is who we're supposed to go to. It's a military government through a set of official documentation that everybody's been signing as a military provisional government for corporate articles.
But I need to. So anyway, the board is open. I'm done. Like I said, I will post all of these links. And I think what I'll do is I'll just make up another a regular post, and then I'll post the Zooms in the comments or something. I don't know how I'll do it yet, but I will have all these links in here so people can follow up on these. But these are basic. The Navy, the Marine, and Coast Guard, when it is operating as a service in the Navy, shall be considered as one armed force. That's who's enforcing all of the inland police enforcements. All of your municipal police agencies are enforced to the Army, Navy, and Marine Corps. Or excuse me, the Navy, Marine, and Coast Guard.
See, it's essentially the Coast Guard that regulates all inland policy, inland police regulation.
How'd you figure that out?
By the way, Malika, it's Keith's neighbor, Christian. Just wanted to say hi.
Excuse me. I don't know who asked that, but and I will find it again. It is listed in their codes. The Coast Guard is the arm of enforcement of all inland police enforcement. All right. I don't know how much time we got left tonight, but I'm going to start copy pasting these links into the chat section. The board is open. Please help fill in the time with some discussion while I copy paste all this for everybody.
Who was that was saying hi? Keith's favorite Christian?
Yes.
Thank you.
Who's that?
My favorite Christian, my neighbor. His name's Christian.
Oh. Howdy ho, neighbor.
He's
And just so everybody's clear here, I'm going to show you here. This is from the Maritime Law Enforcement Program, United States Coast Guard, U.S. Department of Homeland Security. Okay? They regulate Maritime Law Enforcement Program. The Maritime Law Enforcement Program protects America's maritime borders from encroachment, defends our nation's maritime sovereignty from illicit activity, facilitates legitimate use of waterways, and suppresses violations of federal law on, under, and over the high seas and waters subject to the jurisdiction of the United States. The Coast Guard is the lead federal maritime law enforcement agency and the only agency with both the authority and capability to enforce national and international law on the high seas, outer continental shelf, and inward from the U.S. exclusive economic zone to inland waters. Coast Guard responsibilities include detecting, interdicting contraband and illegal drug traffic, at-sea enforcement of U.S. immigration laws and policies, enforcing our nation's fisheries and marine protected resource laws and regulations, ensuring the integrity of the exclusive economic zone, monitoring compliance in international living marine resource regimes, and international agreements to which the U.S. is party. And through compliance with international agreements, combating illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing that negatively impacts maritime and economic security in coastal and regional areas worldwide. Other law enforcement involves the enforcement of marine resource regulations on foreign fishing vessels. This enforcement takes two forms. The first is deterrence, detection, and interdiction of illegal foreign fishing vessels incursions into the U.S. exclusive economic zone. which represents a threat to our nation's renewable natural resources and a violation of United States sovereignty. Protecting the U.S. EEZ is a fundamental Coast Guard maritime security objective. The second aspect is ensuring compliance with international agreements for the management of living marine resources. This is accomplished through enforcement of conservation and management measures created by regional fisheries management organizations. The Coast Guard also helps build organic enforcement capacity within partner nations for resource management and commercial fishery regulations. These partnerships serve as force multipliers, helping to monitor compliance and various international agreements and deter illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing activity worldwide.
Fascinated with our Zooms on Tuesdays and Thursdays because he realizes all the profound information coming out. But, you know, he looks at it just like I do. Wow, that makes plain cotton picking sense.
Mm-hmm. That's the part they don't like.
Yeah, it's when people realize, and I assure you people, the only proof I can give you is my own experience. Because that's my experience is to get them to remove this shit. I'm not one of the ones out there putting all the information on the record anymore. I know that was the problem.
I just ask them questions and they don't want to answer.
Yep.
Because they don't have answers.
You know, how did I become bound in Title 46 or 49 or like any of the shit there? They're like, oh, we're not going to answer that. Delete.
See, and that's the problem. You can ask them questions and they won't answer. I've been asking people questions for a long time, sending them notices, and I get no response. And that's why I say the administrative process has been exhausted when those that you're asking questions of the administration fail and refuse to respond. That is a failure of the administrative process itself. No matter how much I question, no matter what kind of questions I present, they fail to respond. That is failure of public service. That's evidence of incompetency.
Delete.
They're going to be deleting every residential address I ever had.
But no, I really want to know. I really want to know, guys. What makes me bound to come to your court on your invitation? It's almost like, well, don't worry about that. Just show up.
Yeah, like we're just doing our jobs. But if you don't let us do our job, we're going to call somebody, have them bring you here for us to do our job.
I can't tell you're doing your job because I haven't found any job description that says you can even talk to me without an emergency or if I'm in uniform.
Yep, got it.
And that's what I'm talking about. Like when they say I'm just doing my job, but they're not really doing their job, because if they were, they'd know better than to be demanding what they're demanding from us. They would know what it takes to do that job and that those data elements are particular. They don't have the grammar skills to know the differences. They're not looking up the definitions like I do, like we do. Many of us are doing this, and we're finding that the definitions themselves defeat the very contracts that they're implying. It makes them impossible.
To be an emergency. That's one of those things about that emergency, operating under emergency. It's got to be an emergency. I mean, for heaven forbid, if you find some guy peacefully shooting duck on his land, you better leave him alone. He's got a gun.
It's an emergency. My salary is based on the amount of tickets I write. That's an emergency, Keith.
Yep, it's an emergency. I got a quota.
I got a quota.
I got to keep my family alive. I got a quota.
I'm going to rate your family.
Why don't you make that quota a couple ducks a week then? And maybe 6 fish, and maybe a bear a year, and maybe a couple deer in the spring and a couple deer in the fall. Then maybe you can survive. But no, that'd be too much common sense. That would be freely provided. No, I gotta buy my shit. I gotta buy my shit like everybody else.
I gotta participate in interstate and foreign commerce.
So push it up to try and get people out, and then it's a lot from
I got a question. Did anybody read the executive order on requiring coronavirus disease vaccinations for federal employees?
Yeah, it only applies to employees.
Not just all employees, federal.
I was reading it, right? And Steve, you had me look at things a little bit different, especially when you talk about data, right? And they say in here about where they're getting their reasoning from. So it says Trying to figure out how.
All safety, nothing more, nothing less. So I keep telling you, it's an insurance scam for sure.
Wow, and it said right here, it says the FDA has determined that all 3 vaccines meet its regular standards for safety, effectiveness, and manufacturing quality.
People like feeling important to the government.
Safety, effectiveness, and quality. Safety, effectiveness, and quality. So they posed it was for your safety. And we find out it's not really safe. Effectiveness, because it wasn't really safe, the effectiveness isn't there. And obviously, there's no quality because the effectiveness wasn't there because it wasn't safe to begin with.
So they imagine themselves to be G.I. Joe. And then they try to conform. If people read the Constitution, they would know none of these mask mandates apply to any.
Yes, Tennessee, this is sovereign citizen nonsense that you guys are talking about. Come on. It's clear and succinct evidence, material fact evidence through research that we're doing, has nothing to do with sovereign citizen. Find out what that term means and who created it. Has to do with living souls.
Anybody except the federal government employees, potentially, and they can object.
Yeah, they can object and amend to their own private use.
No, I was thinking about that today, right, as I was going in the store. But I was thinking about how, for the conflict of it, for me, because I utilize the social, wouldn't that make me a federal employee?
Did you take an oath of office?
No, I didn't.
Okay, so how could you be federal?
See, it's evidence of a relation through a federal employment or contract at a state level. It's a displacement through enumeration at birth. And again, that displacement is based on a presumption that you were born in the United States. And there's no such record.
Like I said, brother, it's all false. It's all been a presumption. Everybody's
That's a real question. That's a real question. Answer the question.
I'm trying to.
How can you be a federal employee without an oath of office?
You can't. I never took an oath, so.
All right.
So in the beginning, if we were taking this approach from the beginning, I was thinking that things would have, and it's crazy we even have the tunnel. I was thinking things would.
If we were teaching this in the driver education, if we were teaching this in the driver education classes, nobody'd be getting a driver license.
Some people
At
say
18 years of age, how can you be qualified to be take an oath of office to be a public servant when you don't even know the first thing about public service? You haven't even been there yet.
I think I want to try it, Keith. So I'm gonna.
Okay,
I'm gonna,
do it in training. Do it in training. You have to be a ride along.
Well, put it like this, right? I work within the system.
And what I'm talking about there is if you're required to have an oath of office, which is for trade or business, and that's the specific intent that you're supposed to make in a handwritten statement, separately signed from the registration of an automobile, and you're not qualified because you're only 18, and you have to have been a resident for a number of years. Goodness gracious, that sounds like you can't get a license to operate a motor vehicle until you're a certain age that can then perform the functions of public office after you've been elected to such an office and taken an oath to such an office.
And I teach against. So when you talk about these driver's license, I tell my young students, don't get it. I even told my little brother everything. Don't get it. It's not to your benefit.
I attended an online car auction today to see if I can get our boys some old beater cars that they can start getting around in on their own. And there will be no driver's licensing and no registration of any of it. We're not even going to pretend that they might be oath takers.
So I was doing some research on that today, right? And I was looking at the MSO qualifications. And I was looking at it and I was saying, well, if we're not to register our vehicles to these entities, I also saw where you can actually register things to yourself. But where my conflict is coming in at is with these numbers that you were talking about, right? How we, standing up and raising.
Again, if you've got your own private trust set up, you don't have to register your automobile to the state. You can make a valid claim as to estate property for private use. None your business. I'm not going to sell it to you or pledge it to you so you can own it and then lease it back to me with a claim of undertaking the taxes and insurance as an obligation, and then have the property as the surety in case I renege on that, so that you can turn around and take that car from me. That's what's happening. That's the presumption laid by that documentation, and it's false. No one's making their statement of intent. I don't know anybody that's ever done it, let alone known that they were supposed to. Even the CDL people, I've not met anybody that's made that statement yet. And again, you got to remember, under the CDL, if it's for trade or business, again, that's the presumption that there's a performance of the functions of public office.
In our hand and say, yeah, we're going to utilize these numbers because we want to be a part of the government. So I was thinking about how, you know, you have your 9-8 numbers, you have your, or just to say your EIN numbers and things like that. You can actually
don't need any of that, do you, Malika?
None of those numbers are mine, and all of them are taxpayer identification. So I have no intent on paying taxes.
And that's why I asked you the question earlier, because that's what I heard. I couldn't, you know, really make it out what you were saying.
It says Congress shall pay the debt. It says Congress shall lay and collect taxes and pay debt.
It also
If
says
I don't
that
plan
you
on
have the right to,
participating on behalf of Congress, I still, no one can answer the question of why it is that I need to pretend.
and it also says you have the right to petition the government for redress. So why do you need an EIN number when you can just redress it as private, none of your business, not accessible, unclassified?
But from that standpoint, how would you make a purchase from the dealership? Because that's
You
where
don't make a purchase, you do a
With your
transfer.
autograph. With
You
your
don't make a
autograph.
purchase. You let them know that you're the beneficiary. You require the transfer to be made.
This is where the customer, the one that's customizing the order, direct manufacturer custom order, and custom orders an automobile, and that customer agrees to make the third-party payment, so long as it's understood that the credit is given to the customer's account. You don't make a purchase, you extend credit. Once the payment is made through the extension of that credit, the credit is returned back to your account.
They're the ones responsible for the transfer, not you. Why are you buying a car if you're the beneficiary and they're required to transfer it?
He used the word purchase because he doesn't know what purchase means.
Yeah,
Well,
everybody's just so caught up in this thing about words and stuff that they don't comprehend that you really got to get back to the education, guys. Unlearn everything you've learned and go back and redo it.
I bought that little book you had, right? The little green book about concise English.
Yep.
And I didn't get into it just yet, right? But
Well, you got to, brother.
I will. I can promise you that too. I was looking for the first edition of that book because I was reading a book and I noticed I was reading like the 10th edition, and I went back to like the second edition of this particular book, and I realized that the wording inside the book is totally different in the 10th edition as it is in the second edition. That let me know that they're taking stuff out as they graduate these books up to these different editions. So I went to go look
When
for
it
that
comes
first
to the
edition.
English, though, what they're doing is improving it. And that's the same with the code. They're still improving the U.S. code, the C.O.W.A.R.D.S, and all that, but it's only coming because of people like myself and other researchers that are putting this information out there and getting redress. So then they have to go back and change their codes.
I saw that. I forgot who the guy name was, an actor, and he was just talking about, you know, being a non-resident alien or something like that. I forgot what his name was. But he's a famous actor, and he was speaking about when he goes into the court, he considers himself to be an idiot. And so when I started reading the code and I started looking at the definition at the beginning of U.S. code, it shows now that they have in there that you can't, like, this code goes for idiots also.
Okay, it's going to shut down, guys.
USC1.
Everybody have a
One
great night.
USC1.
I'll post this. Yep, one USC1. I'll post as soon as possible, guys.
And so there we have it again. The entire executive service. The exception is that it doesn't actually apply. There was no statement of intent upon enumeration at birth from anybody. And then when you did the SS5, there is still no statement of intent. When you took upon the driver's license, a motor vehicle operator's lease with the registration, insurance undertaking, and taxpayer, there was still no statement of intent. Nobody's giving a statement of intent anywhere. Therefore, everything is based on presumption. That's the simple fix. That is not what I intended. I made a mistake. I need to fix the record. Had I known that a United States citizen was a United States business, I'd have probably educated myself so I could at least try to use it. But since nobody did that anywhere along the line, informed me that it was a United States business, I've always thought it was just a straight up nationality, something to be patronymically prideful of. Come to find out that's, there's but one Father which art in heaven, and pride is a sin. Goodness gracious, I was induced. So anyway, yes, it's called the entire civil service. There's 3 of them on the regular videos. This is before I started going live, so it's on the regular videos portion of my YouTube channel, El Perro. It's about 2 years ago, and you'll see my emblem in the background as such, and it'll be 3 videos back to back about 2 years ago, I think. So please feel free to go back and review that. Review these. It's just a review of those same videos, a little bit extra information, kind of hopefully connecting dots and tying things together. And again, like I said, folks, I'm going to be going forward tomorrow with the IRS at 11 o'clock. I've got an appointment to go talk to them about a forensic securities audit, Form 14-242 abusive trust tax evasion scheme. And I'm going to show them all the documents I've got. I've got the certificate of trust ready, birth certificates, all of it, the fidelity insurance, and well, I've got the actual printout of the fidelity insurance or fidelity bond for all judicial officers and agents of the state. So we'll get that, as well as the information for the local city officers and stuff as well. So I'll get that done tomorrow. Then I'll be doing a video tomorrow night on how that went, and I'll be keeping everybody up to date on that. And in the meantime, the end of our stream, you guys know me. I love you, but I don't give a rat's ass whether you love me back. That's to say, I don't care if you hate me. I don't care if you don't respect me. And that's on you. So may God bless you, and have a good night. See you next time.